Good evening, everyone. I now call this March 14th, 2023 meeting of the City Council of the City of Lancaster to order. A couple of reminders at the top of the meeting. The meeting is being recorded and live streamed. If you would please take a moment to silence your devices if you haven't done so already. During tonight's meeting, if you are making public comment, please do so at a microphone. And as always, begin with your name and block of residence for the record of the meeting. Public comment is limited to no longer than 3 minutes per speaker per item. And now, if you are willing and able, please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Harris, if you would, could you please call the roll of members?
Yes, Madam President. Mr. Ahmed.
Here.
Mr. Arroyo.
Here.
Mr. Glees. Ms. Gregg.
Here.
Ms. Diaz. Ms. Walsh.
Here.
And President Baker.
Here. Councilor Diaz is excused this evening. We begin with the approval of the minutes from the February 28th meeting of council. I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the meeting minutes. Are there any council comments on the minutes? Hearing none. Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ahmed.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. We began this evening with proclamations, honors, awards, and resolutions of recognition. I know we have a few this evening. Mr. Harris, if you'd please begin.
Yes, Madam President. Resolution number 15, 2023. A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster designating March 2023 as Women's History Month in the City of Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion and a second. It is my honor to be able to introduce the Women's History Month resolution to council again this year. Women's History Month has been recognized nationally since 1987, which really wasn't all that long ago, if you think about it. And it really wasn't all that long ago that having 4 women serving on city council, a woman serving as council vice president, council president, as the chief of staff to the city of Lancaster, to the mayor of city of Lancaster, our director of neighborhood engagement of the city of Lancaster would be absolutely unthinkable. And especially having all of them serving at the same time. And I'm incredibly proud that we have that distinction, but I'm even more proud of the women of our city, some of that you do know and many that you don't know, that show up for our community in countless ways and every single day. The theme of National Women's History Month this year is Women Who Tell Our Stories, and these women, the ones that you don't know right now, are the ones who are truly telling our stories and writing women's history as we speak. At this time, I'll take any council comments on the resolution. Or comments from the public. Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ahmed.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz. Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. Thank you very much, my fellow members of council. Do we have additional proclamations this evening?
Yes, Madam President. We have a proclamation from the mayor recognizing AmeriCorps Week.
Thank you very much. Mayor Sirachi.
Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Milzy Carrasco, Director of Neighborhood Engagement, to come to the podium and share a little bit more about this proclamation, and thank you for being here.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council President and Council. I'm really excited about this proclamation and want to give special thanks to Lancaster Lebanon Habitat for Humanity, Audrey and Claire, that have joined us this evening, that have brought forth the proclamation. So a little bit about AmeriCorps Vista program, or Volunteers in Service to America, aims to improve lives, strengthen communities, and foster civic engagement through service and volunteering by partnering a volunteer with nonprofit agencies to build capacity, strengthen community, and address challenges. And as many of you know, we started the Department of Neighborhood Engagement with AmeriCorps Vistas. So the City of Lancaster first received 2 Vistas in 2018 through Bloomberg Harvard Cities of Service to support the first year of Love Your Block program. If you remember Carl Patterson and Michael Prescott, they were extraordinary Vistas, and we also have 2 Vistas that have joined us this evening, Sammy Rosa and as well as Renee Adelman, former Vistas with the city. The Vistas coordinated the funding and project management of 8 resident-led revitalization projects in low-income neighborhoods, the historic 7th Ward. As a pilot program for Love Your Block during that year, the Vistas enlisted over 50 community organizations to support the work of over 1,488 neighbor volunteer hours. From 339 contributing neighbors in 2 communities in Lancaster's Southeast, Howard Avenue and Churchtown neighborhood. In 2019, we received 2 new Vistas to support the growing Love Your Block program, which was still focused primarily in the Southeast. With the announcement of closures and social distancing in March 2020 related to COVID-19, the Love Your Block program pivoted to respond to residents' needs. With the pandemic altering our engagement efforts, we managed 2 workflows: fall of 2019 applications in the target geographic area of the Southeast, and spring of 2020, a citywide launch of Love Your Block mini grants. The mini grants gave residents an opportunity to still build community safely within pandemic restrictions and included projects such as sewing masks for neighbors to distribute for free, a free downloadable coloring book, and family portrait series conducted on the front steps of porches of houses to maintain social distancing. In 2021, CNCS, the Corporation for National and Community Service, awarded the City of Lancaster with a grant that has provided 10 Vistas once we fill all those positions, and 1 Vista lead for 3 years. So far, we have successfully onboarded 4 Vistas, in who have each built capacity for engagement, connected residents to city staff, and tracked the impact of engagement on behalf of their hosting departments. The comprehensive plan led by the Bureau of Planning, Vision Zero led by the Bureau of Engineering, Community and Police Engagement led by the Bureau of Police, and Love Your Block program led by the Department of Neighborhood Engagement have each seen an increase and positive impact in their engagement effort thanks to the work completed by all of our Vistas. So I just want to thank CNCS, all of the Vistas that volunteer a year of service to do this work, and honestly, we couldn't do this work without their contributions. Audrey, would you like to join for some comments?
Hello, everyone. My name is Audrey Lilly. I'm the Volunteer Services Manager at Lancaster Lebanon Habitat for Humanity. I just wanted to thank all of you for taking the time to make this proclamation this week and to recognize our AmeriCorps members. I actually spent 2 years of my first 2 years in the workforce in AmeriCorps, 2008 to 2010, and it really paved the way for my love of public service and working in volunteerism. So I'm really excited to be able to facilitate our program now here at Habitat for Humanity and be able to give that opportunity to some other people in our community. We're really lucky to have our current AmeriCorps member, Claire Goldsboro, with us today, representing Habitat, and just really excited to be here and be a part of this recognition. Thanks so much.
Thank you. If I may, Council President, I just want to take a moment to also acknowledge the Vistas that are here today and that are currently in service and those who have served before in the city of Lancaster and our community. I'm not going to read the entire mayoral proclamation tonight, but I do just want to say that the VISTA program was an incredible opportunity for us to launch the Department of Neighborhood Engagement, as Director Carrasco just mentioned. And out of that was really born our engagement strategy because of the efforts of the Vistas. And the first task that we had was knocking on doors up and down Howard Avenue, and that way has led on to way. We now have a Neighborhood Leaders Academy that was born out of those efforts. We've tremendously expanded our VISTA program, and while this is a lot about the city, I'd want to just really focus on the vistas themselves because they come to the city of Lancaster and to other placements like the Lancaster Lebanon Habitat for Humanity with an incredible set of skills and a desire to serve and learn. And they are putting into practice what service looks like by addressing some of our most pressing challenges and volunteering in this way. And so while they are paid a very small stipend, I consider them truly volunteers for the work that they are doing in our community. And so while we have benefited tremendously through the AmeriCorps partnership as a city, and also by getting to know some incredible people who have come to work with us, I also just want to say that this has that the city of Lancaster, under Director Carrasco's leadership in this program, has been nationally recognized for our efforts around the VISTA program and the ways in which we have employed VISTAs in really, truly doing engagement in our city in a different way. And I would be remiss if I did not acknowledge that when we had our site visit, they couldn't stop talking about the work that we were doing. And so I just want to give a shout out to Milsey for her work there. So with that, if current and former Vistas would like to join me, I'd like to get a quick picture and give somebody this proclamation.
Thank you, Director Carrasco, and to all of our current Vistas and former Vistas for being here this evening. And thank you, Mayor Sirachi. We now move to our first public comment period this evening. This comment period is reserved for residents who have contacted the city clerk prior to the meeting to request the opportunity to address council. Again, durations of comments are limited to no longer than 3 minutes per speaker per item. Do we have any public comments this evening, Mr. Harris?
We do, Madam President. Sean Domensick.
Mr. Domensick, good evening.
Good evening. Hello, my name is Sean Domensick, 400 block of Fremont Street, Catholic worker in the city. This is my 11th public comment over a period now spanning 7 months, begging the city to move forward with the right to rest. I'm still awaiting word from the legal team, President Bakay, and have not heard anything from you regarding your email. Today, I'd like to answer what may be a common objection or tease out an underlying confusion that may make councilors hesitant to move forward with the right to rest. At one of our home rule meetings, Art Morris publicly commented that, quote, balancing a budget is the primary responsibility of municipal government, unquote. I hope that none of you believe him. But based on my conversations with individual council members, it seems that while this council differs in their precise approach from Mr. Morris, they have the same foundational view of government. I call this view the technocratic view because it views government as merely a machine. There are certain levers and controls you have to adjust, but the machinery stays pretty much the same. The goal above all and above everything else is to balance the budget, to tax and allocate money, and to keep the machine running smoothly. If there are to be any changes, we must know how much they cost and whether all the taxpaying stakeholders can come to consensus on the issue first. Opposed to this view is the moral view of government. The moral outlook recognizes that government is not a neutral machine, but a system of power and authority. Therefore, there is grave moral responsibility on leaders, those who hold authority, to use their power, your power, to promote the common good, to defend human rights, and to promote peace and justice. The opinions of stakeholders do, of course, matter because they are a reality of our city, but they must be compared to a much deeper reality of the natural law, the objective rights and dignity of the human person. In a 1968 address, a very important one on the Vietnam War, Martin Luther King took the same view. He said, "I don't determine what is right and wrong by looking at the budget of the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, nor do I determine what is right and wrong by taking a Gallup poll of the majority opinion. Ultimately, a genuine leader is not a searcher of consensus, but a molder of consensus." Not a searcher, but a molder of consensus. As you continue to hear my begging for the right to rest and to review the arguments and details, I ask you to set aside the technical questions for just one moment until you have first listened to the voice of your conscience. Consider the weight of your authority, and for the sake of justice, have the courage to mold consensus in defense of human rights for the poorest of Lancaster's citizens. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Debenzik. Mr. Harris, are there any other public comments this evening?
There are not, Madam President.
Thank you very much. We move to reports requested by council. Mr. Harris, are there any reports this evening?
Yes, Madam President, tonight we have the sidewalk loaning grant program update.
Thank you very much. Director Campbell, good evening.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for having me to be able to make this presentation. Bernie, are you able to chew it up?
I can do that.
I do have it here if you don't want it. Thank you for bearing with us as we
Not a problem.
bring it up on the screen.
Yeah. Thank you very, very much. I'm looking forward to being able to just share a few moments with you about the progress of the Sidewalk Loan and Grant Program that we initiated last year and how it's going. Next. Recognizing that in the city of Lancaster, a third-class city in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, the responsibility for taking care of sidewalks is that of the property owner in front of whose property the sidewalk rests. The city needs to ensure a safe sidewalks for all of those who live, work, and play in the city of Lancaster. Often, this is a hardship. People do not necessarily expect, when they receive a notice of violation, to have to pay for that work, and it's often an expense that they did not budget or plan for. The primary focus of where we are paving or our complaints, it's often where there is broken sidewalks and or where people have complained about sidewalks. The work needs to take place before street paving. So in those instances where we are putting infrastructure in the streets and need to pave the streets, any sidewalk repairs that need to take place alongside that has to take place before the sidewalk, the street paving takes place. And we also anticipate a potential increase in complaints with the rollout of the 311 system because it's easier for people to be able to cite for us where there are tripping hazards. We also need to be able to meet the city standards, which is reducing property owners reducing the challenge of property owners being project managers for things that are not of their kin. They are not necessarily the ones who would like to hire a contractor and follow up on the quality of their work, but the city standards need to be met. Next. In summary, the program provides a means of paying for these necessary improvements. There are 4 options for people. One is to perform the work on their own, which is always an option. When they get a notice of violation, they can go ahead and contract independently and purchase the a contractor to do the work. Under this program, they can pay in full, and in 2022, we actually offered a 10% discount to encourage or to incentivize that situation. We're proposing to not offer that discount in the coming year. Or you can pay in full over time at about $100 per month, and that is one of the selections that people have elected to take. Or you can pay via a low-interest loan program, which reduces your monthly payments and reduces the interest even further for the program, for the cost of getting your sidewalks repaired. Next. If you opt into the program, the work that is performed to city requirements. You get a 3-year warranty so that if there are problems, if the sidewalk settles, if the cracks appear, etc., rather than you having to go back to the contractor and find the way of getting that work redone, it's under warranty with the city, and it becomes the city's responsibility to make those changes. Contractors are competitively bid so that we have competitive pricing to do this work. In 2022, the city subsidized $140,000 in prepayment discount, mobilization, etc. There are certain base costs that accrue whether we have 20 participants, 200 participants, or 2,000 participants, and that needs to be paid for. It's a prepayment mobilization piece. In 2023, the program will see approximately a 25% increase in the cost of doing the pavement work from 2022, unit pricing based on bids. These were, again, competitively bid, and this is consistent with the pricing we're receiving on our other city projects and throughout the region. The city will manage and inspect the work, so permitting is taken care of by the city, not by the property owner, and our staff do the inspections and ensure that if it's not correct, it gets corrected at our direction. Next. In 2022, the sidewalk repair program it lists a total of 715 properties. Frankly, there were approximately 830 properties that were involved. There are a few that did not get done last year, and they have been rolled over into the current year. So of the 715 properties, prepaid, meaning people who said they're going to enter into the program, but prepay, so they would take the advantage of the discount or whatever, it was approximately 57%. Those who took out a loan or a low-interest loan was approximately 83 people, or about 11%. And then there were approximately 28% who did not opt into the program. They just elected they were going to hire their contractor separately, independently, and just do the work on their own, which is absolutely fine as far as we're concerned. And of the total, approximately 4% were city-completed work where they did not opt into the program, but the work needed to get done. And they were notified as per the conventional notice of violation, and those properties, unless they step into the program, will be liened in order to fulfill that work. Next. So what we found was about 68% participation in the program, which we thought was great. We were very pleasantly surprised at that. Only 4% of the work is not being completed by the property owner, and the city will lien those properties. There were 4 conflicts with utilities and sidewalk improvement. So we recognize that there are some areas, some challenges in coordination with utilities and other contractors that have to be smoothed out as we move the program forward. And the work is getting done, and the sidewalks are improved. Next. Here are just a few examples of some of the photographs of examples of the sidewalks that were repaired or replaced. In both of these cases, there was virtually full replacement. Next slide. And in these cases, these were partial repairs. So you're not required to, under a notice of violation, you're not required to replace the entire sidewalk, only the parts that are either in danger or substandard. Next. The 2023 sidewalk repair locations are indicated here. So you see that there's quite a distribution throughout the city. We're still doing work in the upper right-hand corner in UGI is still doing a lot of work in that particular area just north of New Holland Avenue. The Line D is where we are finishing work on Lemon Street for the eastbound connector. There are miscellaneous blocks throughout southwest, and then a larger proportion of the work of this coming year will be in southeast, South Queen Street, south of Farnham, and in a variety of streets throughout southeast. Next. So what we're wanting to recommend, and what in fact we're coming to you for later on in this very meeting, is that we want to continue the program. We have found so many positive comments. This is I would say one of the most successful programs we've had so far, because it recognizes the financial challenge of individuals to try to do something that is necessary for the overall safety of the city, but recognizes that people don't always have the financial capability to do it or do it on a particular schedule. We're proposing to remove the 10% prepaid discount because we have found that it is successful enough that that discount is no longer necessary. And in fact, the city pays that discount. And so that's an additional dollars out of our coffers to make that incentive work. We want to work towards providing notices 1 year, as much as 1 year before the paving and after utility replacement work, so that there's more than ample notice of when to do it. Hopefully you'd have anywhere from 3 to 9 or even as much as 12 months notice and be able to make your own arrangements and still be able to opt into the program. But we also do need to continue to subsidize the mobilization costs, because there are certain sunk costs required to just get the program started in the springtime, where the contractor mobilizes to do their work. I think that's the last slide, but is there a next? Yeah, that's the last slide. So what you'll see later on in this meeting is our request to utilize enterprise zone funds, and we'll show how financially that works, because it is a self-funding program basically, and we just need to continue to jumpstart it for this coming year in order to keep what we believe is a very successful program moving forward. I'm very happy to answer any questions if you have them.
Thank you, Director Campbell. I'll open it up to any questions from council, and again, remind everyone that this will be an item, a resolution that will come before us later on this evening as well. So any council comments on the presentation at this time?
President Baker, if I may.
Councilor Ahmed.
Thank you for the presentation, Director. Is there a platform for renters, or could they use Fix-It to alert the city of, although they may not own the property, of damaged sidewalks in front of their rental properties?
It's a very good question. ClickFix, which is our Fix-It program, is the vehicle is our preferred vehicle for receiving complaints or recommendations of work that has to be done, not limited to just sidewalks. It would be for potholes, for anything in the public right-of-way that people feel need to be repaired. So yes, as a renter, as a property owner, whoever one is, whether even as a non-resident, one would be able to use Fix-It to let us know what needs to be done. The program applies to property owners. So the loans, if you are a renter, you're not directly paying the cost of doing these sidewalks. The property owner is paying for that.
Thank you. And my last question is regarding the liens against properties. How many steps does it take before a lien is issued against the property or the homeowner?
Well, there are several notices during the process of alerting people that you've got a notice of violation, that there's a certain amount of time to be able to respond to it. We remind people that they've got the opportunity to opt into the program. And then if they're not responsive, or they are choosing not to do what's necessary to fulfill the notice of violation, then a lien is placed on the property, and it in essence does not really go into effect unless or until the property is selected to change hands.
Thank you, Director, and thank you, Council President.
Thank you.
Council President.
Councilor Walsh.
Director Campbell, quick question. With the diagram that you had showed and the breakdown of those opting in or using a prepayment program, And with the anticipated increase for 2023, can you just explain the logic around having the rebate program be successful enough to stop? Why would you choose, or why are we choosing to remove the 10% prepayment rebate when it looks like the majority of the work has been entered into and completed through that particular program?
That's a very good question. What we were learning from people was that the rebate was not, or the discount was not the thing that was enticing them into the program. The ability to either pay over time or to pay at their, basically to pay over time was the thing that was most useful to them. So that incentive, which actually costs the city money, was not a determining factor. What we do believe is that there may be a higher percentage this coming year of those who want to take the low-interest loans rather than just pay over time. But we don't think that being able to pay for that incentive will make that much of a difference. I do want to let people realize also that last year, which was the first year of doing this program, we had approximately, as I said, approximately 830 applications, and that was partly, or 830 properties, and that was partly because we were not only making up for lost time, there were almost 2 years where we were not able to do many of those repairs during COVID, as well as trying to catch up with people who had not, in previous years, done work on their sidewalks. This coming year, we're looking at only about 200 properties. So the magnitude will be significantly less in terms of administering the program.
Thank you, that's helpful. With the, has the prepayment rebate program, has that ended? So if somebody comes this evening or later tonight and fills out an application or, has a notice arrive in the mail, is that still an option today?
No, it is not. It ended being an option at the end of last season when we were making those applications. Going into this year, where we had before, maybe a month or so ago, we weren't sure exactly how far we'd be able to go with the current program, but we elected that, given the feedback, there was not the need to pay additional money to do that incentive.
And then my last question is, with that 140K in subsidized amounts from the city, do you know the breakdown between the prepayment discount and the mobilization costs?
Yes, hold on just a second.
While Director Campbell's looking for that, I'll just add that even though we're talking about removing the 10% discount for payment in full as a prepayment, there are still considerable savings to residents who participate in this program because they they're not required to do the permitting and also the time commitment for managing the schedule, the inspections, and so on. So it is a rather long process to go through, and the city is absorbing that because we are able to do this in bulk, essentially.
Yes, that's correct. So where last year the subsidy and the mobilization costs were approximately the 140,000, this year with the 25% increase, it's a little bit more than 180,000 is the setup costs.
And I think that, if I'm correct, that Councilor Walsh was asking you, within the 140,000 last year, what was the split between the mobilization cost and the prepayment?
40,000 for more mobilization and 100,000 for the prepayment.
Okay, did you just say that?
No.
Oh, okay, all right, I just wanted to make sure that
No.
Did I understand that correctly? Yes, so Ms. London in the back is saying if you could just say that again because it was hard to hear.
40,000 for prepayment, 100,000, I'm sorry, 40,000 for, I'm apologizing. It was 100,000 for the setup and 40,000 for prepayment.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Any other council comments on the presentation?
If I may, Council President.
Councilor Arroyo?
Thank you for the presentation, Director Campbell. And also, it seems like an excellent program, and to shift the burden from the homeowner to being able to have the city manage the project is a huge lift off people's shoulders. So thank you for your team for managing that process. One question I do have is regarding the stipulations for who qualifies for what part of the program or the payment options. Are there any stipulations, or does every city resident have access to the different payment options?
Every city resident has access to every payment option. If you feel very strongly that even the $100 per month is too much, you can opt at whatever income level to go for the low interest loan, and it'll just be negotiated a little bit differently. But most people, as you could see, most people opted for just being able to pay it over time at basically $100 per month over time.
And for the low interest loan, what is the average interest rate, and how is that determined?
I believe it's 2%. It was based on what was prevailing at the time. We expect that there may be a slight increase because the interest rates have already gone up. But it is based on what it'll cost us to borrow that money.
Okay. But still seems like still well below market rate
Yes.
as well. So, great. Thank you, Director Campbell.
Thank you, Councilor Arroyo. Hearing now there are council comments on the presentation. Excuse me, I will remind the public that this item, the resolution related to this presentation will be discussed later in our legislative agenda. We'll go into more of the details about the ask for the 2023 program.
Council President, if I may, I just have one last quick question. Is there any full payment options for those who, may not have funds at all to repair the sidewalk? Is there any full
Like
grant?
a full grant? At this moment, there is not a formalized full grant program. It is not officially off the table, but with every negotiation we've had so far, people were willing and able to enter into a low interest loan program if they felt that they had difficulties in being able to make any kind of payment.
Thank you. Thank you, Council President.
Thank you. Sure. We'll take public comment on the presentation. Mr. Stoldreyer.
Thank you, Council President. Tim Stuhlder, 1 United Lancaster. I think you said that the schedule for 2023 involves about 200 properties, but you also said that the discount the city is absorbing is about $180,000. If we remove the 10% discount, I'm puzzled as to why the city's share is going up rather than down.
Thank you very much. It's a good question. The bids, we're subject to bidding with the market, and the bids were uniformly around 25% higher than the bids were last year. The same contractor who acquired the successful bid last year is not the same contractor who acquired the successful bid this year. And so it's based on the cost that they indicate it's going to take to do the setup, so that once they set up and start doing the sidewalk work, they can continue to do that work. It's not something that we set or that we establish, and it is the case that even though there are 200 properties, which is about a quarter of the properties that were online for last year, a number of these properties are somewhat larger. Many of them are corner properties, so in some cases, the sidewalks are larger sidewalks, although there were a lot of very large sidewalks last year.
Thank you very much.
You also indicated some properties are being rolled over from 22 to 23. Will they be grandfathered in for the 10% discount, or do they lose that?
Again, a very good question. If they had elected at the time to enter into that program, then they do get the 10% discount. But many of those that were rolled over did not elect into the program, and so they will not get the advantage of the discount if they did not elect to go into it at that part of the program at that time.
Thank you, Director Campbell. Are there any other public comments on the presentation? Mr. Acosta-Velez, good evening.
Thank you. My name is Ivan Acosta Velez. I live at 800 block of Highland Avenue in the city of Lancaster. Question to Mr. Campbell. Last year or the year before, they came and did those crazy things.
Mr. Acosta-Velez, I apologize, but to be heard in the room and also on the recording, you'll need to be at the microphone.
I was just asking them, you know those crazy little things that they do for the water? Whatever they call, I call them crazy, but the water thing. Yeah, that they're very fun.
The storm drains? The storm drains or the rain gardens?
Rain garden.
Thank you. Continue, Mr.
We had
Acosta-Velez.
2 rain gardens made near my property, and they cracked a sidewalk. But Mr. Acosta took a picture before they cracked it, and then I got a satellite picture from your office that it was cracked then. And it wasn't. It was correct. It cracked after they left. And the reason is that I'm an old folk, and the old folk save stuff. So I saved the picture, so I'll bring the picture to you. So you can see, that they need to repair that, because there's nothing warranty. It was done after the fact. After they left, the thing cracked or during what they did. And when they left, I took a picture, and it wasn't cracked.
Mr. Acosta-Velez, I hate to interrupt your 3 minutes, but it doesn't sound like this particular comment is related to the presentation. It's more about a specific issue, which I'm sure Director Campbell or a member of his staff could address, excuse me, outside of this meeting. Would that be okay?
I don't have a problem. I just wanted to know, what are you doing if that happens? You talk about my issue, but in the overall, what would you do if that's going on?
In the case where a contractor related to the sidewalk repair program has done damage to a sidewalk or done damage to something related to the property, that contract is insured, and therefore the work to repair or otherwise make whole the owner is included in that work.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Director Campbell. Are there any other further comments on the presentation? Ms. London, good evening.
Hello, everybody. Dana London, 200 block of North Broad Street. Question, so I'm just trying to understand this. So there's a permit cost to this, and the homeowner is responsible for the permit cost, right?
If I can take a moment of your time to respond. So the program would mean that the city covers the permits if they decide to enter this program,
Okay.
and that's available to anyone.
Okay, so I'm just trying to understand the difference between the city doing it and the homeowner doing it. What's the difference cost-wise?
It sounds like, Director Campbell, that's the primary difference.
Okay.
And do you know off the top of your head what the permit cost would be for a sidewalk repair if the homeowner would just do it on their own?
Offhand, I don't know what the cost is. There's a base permit fee, and then depending on the size of the sidewalk to be replaced, it increases accordingly.
Sure, that would make sense. Thank you.
All right, so I'm just thinking about this regular city piece of sidewalk, not a huge area, just a regular house. Okay, so my question is, I have 3 minutes, so I'm going to hurry up. So my question is, in 2023, you said there's an increase of 25% versus 2022? This is the city program, right?
Correct.
Okay, so I'm not understanding, who decides where the 25%, who decides the increase?
So I'm going to answer using the answer that Director Campbell just gave a moment ago, that the contract was rebid this year. It ended last year, and it's been rebid, and that cost from the bidder is now 25% higher.
So is that on pen bid?
What do we
Bid-
use, Director Campbell? Is that a pen
Is that on
bid
pen bid?
or?
It is pen bid we use.
Yes,
for-
it is
for
pen
that.
bid.
And then on that, I'm sorry, on that bid, does it say the lowest person, the lowest bid?
They would be the lowest qualified bidders, so they would have to demonstrate that they have the capability, the skill set, and the certifications to do the work that we required at the level of quality that we're expecting.
Okay, so that's specified, because to me, when I went on PedBid and I was looking at some of the projects, most of them had the lowest bidder. So this is different.
I want to make sure you still get your time, but I don't
Okay.
believe we're required to take the lowest bidder because we have a qualifications that they must
Okay.
meet.
All right, so,
Mhm.
all right, so we're just talking the city, so I can't talk about personal, I can only talk about the city, what you just did, right? All right, so, I'm confused about how you're gonna drop the 10% discount. Because that, you already started, and it's these people got offered a 10% discount if they paid it in full. Now you're gonna continue rolling out the program, and now you're taking the 10% off the table, but you're increasing price by 25% because supplies went up. That doesn't make sense.
I want to make sure you have a little bit of time. Is that your last question? And I will allow
it's
folks to
not.
address that.
It's not. So you have certain areas that you already did, Lemon Street and up in that area, you did already, 2022. They had the 10% discount if they paid in full. Now you're coming to the southeast area, southwest area, and you're taking the 10% off with the increase of 25%. That's not making sense to me because I know a lot of elderly people that 25% is going to kill them. Not that they could pay the 10% in full, you understand? But that additional 25%, I understand supplies went up, I totally get that. But now it's like you're taking anything that you gave the first group, whatever you gave them as a cushion, you're taking away from the next group that is going to be hit with this, and they're not going to be able to afford it. We just had our fees increased for $220 per year. Now we're increasing with this sidewalk thing.
Ms.
I don't
London, you have
understand.
hit 3 minutes. So just
Okay, I
wanna
don't understand
wrap it
how you
up.
expect them to pay this.
Thank you. Director Campbell, Mayor Sracci, if you have anything on that, you can certainly respond.
I'll just spend a half a moment or so. We're trying to be competitive. We do not want, nor should we be competing against the other developers or other contractors who can do this kind of work. We have no control over what the actual bids are. And yet the cost of the work still needs to be done. If someone receives a notice of violation and they do not take advantage of this program, then the responsibility for coordination as well as making sure that it's done properly still rests on them. What we have found to be the most appealing part of this program is that however much it costs, there's the ability for it to be paid over however long it takes at a reasonable cost. The 10% was intended as an incentive, partly to understand to what extent the program was going to be palatable or even desirable. I believe very strongly that there is not a need for the city to spend tens of thousands of dollars to create that incentive if the payment plan is just as easy over time. Yes, it is the case that you may pay a little bit more, but in most, and you have the opportunity to enter into a low-interest loan to make that easier to pay. I think that's basically the answer.
Council President, if I may ask.
Councilor Arroyo.
Director Campbell, and just to clarify, this program that was piloted with the 10% discount was available to all city residents. It wasn't piloted in a specific area, and then we're removing the 10%, and now it's going into other areas. Is that correct?
It was available to all city residents who were receiving notices of violation to get their sidewalks done throughout all 4 quadrants and beyond.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you, Director Campbell. Great. We'll discuss, excuse me, the 2023 funding when that comes up on our legislative agenda. We then move to our reports of committees of council meetings. These are the meetings held on March 6, 2023. We begin with the Public Safety Committee. Councilor Diaz is not here this evening. The Public Safety Committee did meet and they discussed Resolution Number 16, authorizing the destruction of obsolete police records, and also Resolution 17 of 2023, authorizing an agreement with the District Attorney's Office related to funds received for an auto theft prevention grant. Both of those items appear on our legislative agenda this evening for a vote, so we'll discuss them further at that time. Public Works Committee, Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Council President. The Public Works Committee did meet and discuss Resolution Number 19, which we will discuss later in the legislative agenda, which authorizes a reimbursement agreement for a bike share grant. And additionally, as we had stated, another resolution will come up, number 21, authorizing a loan from the Enterprise Loan Fund, which will also come up later in the agenda, and that concludes the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Walsh. The Economic Development Committee, Counselor Arroyo.
Thank you, Council President. The Economic Development Committee did meet. We had one item on our agenda to discuss, which was an update regarding the community facilities request for proposals for the ARPA funds. Gave a brief update stating that while we were hoping to bring recommendations for funding to council in the month of March, that the evaluation of final questions was not yet complete, and we hope to be bringing the recommendations to council in April. That concludes my report, Council President.
Thank you, Counselor Arroyo. Finance Committee, Counselor Ahmed.
Thank you, Council President. The Finance Committee did meet, and we discussed the legislative budget transfer for codification expenses, and that will be in our legislative agenda. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, Counselor Ahmed. Community Planning Committee, Counselor Craig.
Thank you, Council President. Community Planning did meet on the 6th, and we had two items on the agenda. Administration Resolution 18, amending the fees for subdivision and land development review, and Administration Resolution 20, amending sewage facility plan to include Franklin and Stevens redevelopment project. And that concludes.
Thank you, Counselor Craig. Last is the Personnel Committee. That would be Counselor Kaliks, who is absent this evening. The Personnel Committee did not meet. We then move to our legislative agenda this evening. We begin with our legislative budget transfer. Mr. Harris. Counselor Ahmed, sorry.
Thank you, Council President. 2022 was a busy year for City Council and the administration. We adopted 28 ordinances, several of which were quite lengthy. At the beginning of every year, our contracted publishing company adds ordinances from the prior year to our city code. The cost to update our code this year is nearly $12,000, which is triple amount the update has cost in recent years and more than was budgeted. To pay this added cost, we are proposing shifting $3,500 from the unemployment compensation line item in the administrative services budget to the ordinance codification line item in the city clerk's budget. Because this is moving money between departments, it requires city council approval. So I make a motion to move $3,500 from administrative services unemployment compensation to city clerk ordinance codification.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any council comments on the budget transfer motion? Comments from the public? Mr. Acosta-Velez.
Yes, my name is Ivan Acosta Velez. I live at 804 Highland Avenue. My question on this transfer, we're going to get the paperwork put into a system, correct? Is that what we're doing?
For the use of the funds?
Records and all that stuff will be put into
To codify
a
our
system.
city codes,
And-
correct.
And there'll be other parties doing that for us, correct?
That's correct.
My question is, are we gonna train our own staff to start doing this? Or what are we doing? We're always gonna pay a third party to do it for us? Because I know of different agencies that I saw that they're doing it themselves. So are we targeting? It would be a question to you.
I would ask Mr. Harris, what is their procedure for codifying codes and who was able to do that for us?
We have used a contracted publishing company for as long, at least, we've been with the current company at least since 1997. The amount of work that we would have to do in order to codify it in-house would be voluminous. It is considering the amount that we pay, it is fiscally wise for us to contract with a company that specializes in this.
Versus hiring staff to do so.
Yes.
No, I'm not
Thank you,
talking-
Mr. Harris.
My question is not getting staff. My question is, as the staff is doing that, can't they scan it as they're doing that?
I do
That's my
think the
question.
process is more than just scanning the codes in, Mr. Acosta-Velez.
Excuse me?
I do believe that the process is more than simply scanning the documents in. Having not done it myself, I can't speak to the intricacies of the system, but it does require specialized work.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. Any further comments on the legislative budget transfer?
Yes, real quick
Ms.
question.
Linden?
Real quick question. Why is there such a big difference?
I can answer that question. Do you have any others before we? Okay. Yep. So last year, we had several large pieces of legislation, including updates to our rental property ordinances, the lead hazard program, and there was a few others in there. It was actually one of the largest years for legislation, and so the volume was just that much higher. Any further comments on the legislative budget transfers? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Med?
Aye.
Mr. Roya?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. We move then to resolutions. First item, resolution number 16. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the disposal of certain obsolete records in conformity with the retention and disposition schedule for records of the Pennsylvania municipalities.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. I'll take this one for Councilor Diaz. We heard from Captain Zook. Hi, you're back there. At our previous meeting, he explained to us that these records, some of them were quite old, and all of the actual destructions comply with state laws regarding records retention. There are hard copies of all of these files. These are rather hard copies of these files, and there are still electronic copies of all of them that do remain. Captain Zook, I'll ask if there's anything that you'd like to add outside of that description before I move to council comments that you may be able to answer. Okay, thank you very much. Are there any council comments on the motion? Comments from the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Med?
Aye.
Mr. Roya?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. Our next item is resolution number 17, 2023. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster authorizing the execution of the pass-through agreement between the City of Lancaster and the District Attorney of Lancaster County.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Again, I'll take this one for Councilor Diaz. This authorizes an agreement with the District Attorney's Office. Each year, or actually every 2 years, the city receives a grant that covers the salaries of 2.5 officers and costs associated with this program, including part of the salary of the Assistant District Attorney that covers the city. That's at the county level. So this resolution is authorizing an intermunicipal agreement in order for them to receive those funds from this grant. Captain Zook, is there anything that you'd like to add at this time? Thank you. Any council comments on the motion? Comments from the public? Hearing none. Mr. Harris?
Mr. Med?
Aye.
Mr. Roya?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
And President Baker.
Aye. Resolution number 18, 2023. Mr. Harris?
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster amending the schedule of fees for the review of subdivision and land development plans for the inspection of improvements installed in accordance with approved plans as provided for in the Pennsylvania Municipalities Planning Code and the City of Lancaster Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance.
Motion to approve.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Craig?
Thank you, Council President. The Planning Bureau is in charge of administering City Code Section 265 Subdivision and Land Development Ordinance. In the past, the city staff have been the sole reviewers of subdivision and land development plans, and the fees for those reviews aim to cover city staff time. The city has now contracted with a consultant to assist in the review and the processing of subdivision and land development applications. However, city staff will still be an integral to the review process. As a result, the fee resolution has been proposed, which covers both staff time and consultant time. This is a budgeted budget neutral issue because developers it will cover the cost of the developer and staff.
Thank you,
I-
Councilor Craig.
Yes, I don't know if Douglas would want to add to that or if that is adequate.
Terrific.
Okay.
Thank you, Councilor Craig. Are there any council comments on the motion? Comments from the public? Hearing none. Mr. Harris?
Mr. Ahmed?
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
And President Baker?
Aye. Resolution number 19, 2023. Mr. Harris?
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster, Pennsylvania, authorizing the city to enter into a reimbursement agreement with the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation to use congestion mitigation and air quality improvement funding for the Lancaster Bike It Bike Share Program.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Walsh?
Thank you, Council President. As I understand this reimbursement agreement, it's upwards to $96,000, and it would be reimbursable by the Pennsylvania Department of Transportation. And ultimately, what it does is double the amount of bikes that we can have through this program from 25 to 50. Director Campbell, would you like to add? Thumbs up, kind of nice.
Good.
All
Great.
right.
Thank you, Councilor Walsh. Appreciate that. Council, any council comments on the motion?
If I may, Council President.
Councilor Ahmed?
Just as somebody who works in the hospitality and tourism industry, this Bike It program does assist visitors to Lancaster a great deal who would like to get from one place to another without renting a car or be able to enjoy different parts of the city. So I just wanted to make sure that we have that point as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Ahmed. Any other council comments on the motion? Any comments from the public? Ms. London?
Question. Yes, quick question. So we're going to get reimbursed, meaning they're going to get reimbursed to buy these bikes. And then, right,
These are funds that we are being reimbursed.
we are being reimbursed for
Mhm.
buying the bikes. But if I'm not mistaken, tell me if I'm wrong. Was it last week when they had the guy doing his presentation for the bike program? He was saying there were certain businesses that use it. I guess their employees use it a lot.
Director Campbell made the presentation at our committee meeting, and one of the things I remember him stating at that was that the data shows that riders are using them in 30-minute rides or less, which means they could be used for commuting within the city.
Right, and there was like 3 or 4 businesses that was mentioned that pretty much their employees pretty much use them more than others.
I'm not sure about that. Director Campbell, do you have some clarification? And Ms. Linden, I want to make sure that you do get your time if there's anything else that you needed to. Thank you.
It is a good question, and we don't have data on how much of it is by businesses as opposed to individuals. Approximately 68% of the rides are under 30 minutes. About 24% are, or I know that the number is 24% are from 30 to 60 minutes. The balance must be longer trips somehow. But we don't necessarily know how many of those are pleasure, commuting, et cetera. But the length of the rides strongly suggests that a lot of it is for commuting. And we don't discourage corporations or businesses from subsidizing the cost of bike share to their employees, but it's not a requirement.
Thank you very much, Director Campbell. Any other comments from the public on this motion? Hearing none, Mr. Harris?
Mr. Ahmed?
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo?
Aye.
Ms. Craig?
Aye.
Ms. Walsh?
Aye.
And President Baker?
Aye. We move to resolution number 20, 2023. Mr. Harris?
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving the adoption of an amendment to the Act 537 Official Sewage Facilities Plan for the City of Lancaster.
Motion to approve.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Councilor Craig?
Thank you, Council President. So municipalities are required to develop and implement comprehensive official plans that address sewage disposal needs now and in the future. When a new land development project is proposed, municipalities are required to revise their official plan unless the project is exempt from planning. As of November 2019, the PA Department of Environmental Protection has been more restrictive about issuing exemptions due to the city's challenges with combined sewer overflows into the Conestoga River. The modules are often submitted at early planning stages for development. Sewer modules are only disapproved under very specific conditions and upon a technical recommendation by the sewer engineer. And the project that we're speaking about is Thaddeus Stevens is the landowner of the former Shell recycling property, which was sold to them through the City Redevelopment Authority. The college has submitted a sketch proposing 4 pairs of semi-detached housing units, 8 in total. The use is by right in the R2 district, and the construction of the houses will serve as learning opportunities for a long-standing college program focused on home building. Units must be occupied by residents at 80% area median income. The sewer planning module requests capacity for these 8 units.
Thank you very much. Councilor Craig, are there any other council comments on this motion?
Council President,
Councilor Walsh.
I guess this would be a question for Director Delfs. When did the City Redevelopment Authority sell that parcel of land to Stevens?
Dr. Delfs or Douglas? Thank you for pulling that information up.
Sure, no problem. Good evening, council, and good evening, mayor. It looks like it was approved in 2021, I believe at the August meeting for the City Redevelopment Authority. And then there were several conditions on that sale as well, including the affordability that Councilor Craig mentioned.
Could you, just curious about the other conditions of the affordability we spoke about and
Sure. Let's see, give me just one moment here. So all units will be sold to city residents who qualify under the authority's affordability program, which condition shall be included in the deed restriction when recorded. Subject to, also they're subject to the affordability restriction upon resale or rental imposed by the seller upon the buyer in accordance with the policy. There's also condition, and so the affordability is specified at 80% area median income. Thaddeus Stevens was to pay $50,000 to the city for outstanding costs. Ultimately, the college will engage the community moving forward in the development process. The city will incur the costs of outstanding taxes associated with the properties. The college agreed to manage the sale of the properties and absorb the costs associated with the sales.
so these properties are for home ownership, not for rental, correct?
They are for home ownership. I think I'd have to clarify that possibly with the redevelopment authority, because they've changed their policy, as you know, recently, and their rentals are allowed in some cases. But I think in this case, the college wants to dispose of all of the houses and sell them. Who buys them and then what they do with them, I think, has to be permissible within the affordability program set forth by RACL, which allows for both ownership and rental.
Yeah, and forgive me, one more question. How many units, how many homes are we talking about on the parcel?
So 8 single-family homes, and they'll be built as semi-detached units. So 2 of them will be attached on one side, and there'll be 4 pairs of those.
Got it. Thank you so much.
Sure, no problem.
Thank you.
Council President, if I may.
Councilor Ahmed.
This question is for either Director Dulles or Douglas. The 80% median income, do we know what that comes out to in like a dollar amount?
That's city 80% AMI because these are to be sold only to city residents. So I believe that the qualification is for median income based on city. And 80% median area income is I need to have these numbers at the tip of my tongue. Douglas.
Thank you, Councilor Ahmed, for the question. It may take me a little time to look it up, but I will look it up for you. It changes each year. The definition is determined by the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, and that's applied to a number of different programs that we use for affordable housing. Because that's a standard definition, we've used that as part of our redevelopment authority policy as well. It not only varies according to year, but it varies according to number of people within the household. So it's usually not one particular number, it's a range of numbers. We typically use the AMI for a household of 4 as the bellwether. It just changed again for 2023. I'm happy to look that up for you and provide that for you either in a little while or after the meeting.
After the meeting, I was just curious on what the actual number would be.
Certainly. And I think it is notable in this case that there is a redevelopment authority affordability policy for any properties that are resold to homeowners or to renters. This particular transaction is a little bit unique in the sense that there was an additional condition that it's specifically for existing city residents, the new homes that will be available.
Thank you.
Great. And sorry I didn't have that at my fingertips, but I'll provide that to you as soon as possible.
Director Delph, I have a question. So what is the difference between area median income and city median income?
Very good question. So every city in the country has what's called a metro statistical area that HUD uses for their affordability metric. In our case, the metro statistical area is the county as a whole. That's not the case for every city. Some other cities in the country, it's inner ring suburbs, but it doesn't necessarily include the whole county. Here within Lancaster, it's the county as a whole. So that is the county AMI is the number that's used for the affordability programs that we administer. But it's very important to note that the area median income for the county as a whole is different than the city area median income. The city's area median income tends to be, I think it's a little bit about a little more than 60% of the area median income for the county.
Thank you.
And again, sorry to jump in again. That number also does vary according to the number of people in the household, et cetera. So it's not a hard and fast number, but as a rule of thumb, it's usually about 60 or 65%. The city AMI is about 60 or 65% of the county.
Thank you. Mayor Sarachi.
I'll just say that I just pulled up the 2022 family income guidelines that I'm sure have been updated or about to be updated for 2023. And for a family of 4, the ceiling for 80% median income is $72,000, if that gives you an indication. So that's for a family of 4, and for a family of 2, it's $57,000 for the city.
And Mayor, does that have the 60% mark on that particular chart as well?
Well, it has a 30, 50, 80.
Okay. Most of our programs are dealing with rental units, which is actually at 60% AMI. When it's a homeowner occupied unit, then we apply the 80% standard.
Thank you very much. All right. Comments from the public? Whoever. Mr. Acosta-Velez.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited. Hello.
There you go.
It's on, amen. Listen, this is the question that I asked last time, and they turned it into that it was a racial thing. This is what I was asking. Okay? Exactly this question, and they turned it around. But thank you for answering. That's the question that I asked. Can we get a thing for the city residents? And then I wanted to add, can we do it for the southeast residents? Maybe we can't do it for the southeast residents, but we can, hallelujah, we can do it for the city residents. And that was my question. It had nothing to do with race. So I want to clear the air. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Stoldreyer.
Tim Studer, One United Lancaster, and my question is actually tied to that because, yes, at the committee meeting, Douglas indicated that fair housing would bar the city from restricting sale, based on race and other characteristics. So I'm surprised to hear that fair housing would not prohibit restricting sale to city residents, and just wanted to confirm that is in fact legit.
Sounds like that's within the ability of the redevelopment authority of the city of Lancaster to set those items, but race would be a restricted, we would not be able to implement. Any further comments in the public? Hearing none, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Ahmed.
Aye.
Mr. Arroyo.
Aye.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
And President Beke.
Aye. And resolution number 21, 2023. Mr. Harris.
A resolution of the Council of the City of Lancaster approving the movement of $650,000 from the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund to the Curb and Sidewalk Fund.
I'll hear a motion.
Motion to approve?
Second.
We have a motion and a second on the item. Councilor Walsh.
Thank you, Council President. Director Campbell, I will need assistance with this one.
This is directly related to your presentation earlier this evening. Is that right, Mr. Campbell?
Yes, it is.
Thank you.
So our goal with the program, we recognize that it's an innovative program, but we wanted ultimately for the program to be self-funding. And so we needed to recognize how much it cost to provide the services that took place last year and project how much it was going to cost to take it forward this year. This year, it's going to take approximately $1.7 million to be able to do. Last year, it took approximately $1.5 million to do. And part of that's related to the cost of, the increased cost based on the bidding. But we needed to be able to prime the pump, if you will. So we received last year approximately $260,000 in the loan program. And there's a number of committed people who have people committed to the loan program. And so for the next 5 or 6 years, we have a predictable amount of income based on those who have already signed up for the loans, even if we don't get any new people signing up for the loans. In order to make up the difference, we set the price, or we set the amount that we were looking for at approximately $650,000, which is the amount that we will be receiving over the course of these next 3 years for the loans that are already signed up for. Again, not adding new loans on that. There's currently $2.5 million in the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund, and this is our ability to be able to borrow from the Enterprise Zone Loan Fund and reimburse them as the loan amounts are received, so that hopefully after the 3rd year, we will not need to be doing such a borrowing. But in order to keep this program moving forward, which we believe is a very successful and a very widely approved program, we needed to be able to borrow from a fund that was not necessarily being diminished. However, we wanted to limit the amount that we borrowed so that we don't adversely affect the ability to use the enterprise zone funds for other purposes, should that be determined. So we're looking for the principal and interest payments into the enterprise zone loan fund in 2023 through 2025 will total approximately $650,000, which will get repaid at approximately $250,000 per year based on the loans that come in. If there are more loans this coming year, it makes it that much easier to pay back the loan fund.
Thank you very much, Director Campbell. Council comments on the resolution.
Council President?
Councilor Walsh.
This may sound like a silly question, but if you're moving funds from the enterprise loan fund into a particular department or project to carry for X number of years, is there any penalty for using that? Or I guess my question is, the city isn't charging interest on its own loan here. Do you understand what I'm saying?
I do understand what you're saying, and I don't necessarily know the answer to that question.
Okay. Like the
Mayor?
cost of doing business from the enterprise zone loan fund for public works using that?
It's
No.
based on a balance of funds that are already in the enterprise zone.
Yeah. There's no interest that's being charged to the Department of Public Works for utilization of the enterprise loan funds for the purposes of assisting residents in sidewalk repair.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council President, if I may.
Councilor Ahmed.
I just had a separate question. What is the process for other projects to receive loans from the Enterprise Loan Fund?
I'm trying to recall, Director Hopkins answered that question at a previous meeting, and I'm going to need to get back to you.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
I have a very short answer for you. The Enterprise Loan Zone Fund has not been active for some time. It used to be used for capital improvement loans to local businesses in the city, but we've not been using it for that purpose for some time. As we discussed at, I think at one of the last meetings, the funding that is currently in that pot is returned from those original loans. So we're not using it for that purpose right now. It has been used for the sidewalk loan program as one example.
Yeah, it just seems like it's been successful if the money's been returned, so I was just a little questioning why we haven't continued to use it.
Yeah, it's a great question. I think it really speaks to the work with our nonprofit partners around the city. Since the time that this loan fund was originally established, there's been a number of other programs that have become available. Small business loans through the CRIZ, for example, the City Revitalization Improvement Zone. We haven't gotten as much interest in that particular program in some time, and thought that it would be better to repurpose it for other community needs where perhaps we didn't have a nonprofit organization or other funds that were available for that purpose.
Thank you.
I would also just add that it has been built up over time, and that the amount that is in the enterprise loan fund has grown. And so we were brainstorming how to fund sidewalk repairs, because there was really a hesitation to cite property owners for sometimes egregious violations related to their sidewalk because of the financial burden that it would take. And so how do we create safe streets for pedestrians, for elderly, for people pushing strollers or in wheelchairs, if we don't have a mechanism to help people pay for it? And so to me, this is a win-win strategy, because these resources are being deployed in a way that are helping residents across the city to the betterment of neighborhoods in our community.
Thank you, Mayor Srirachi. And I'd also add that this is one of the most common questions that we receive from people about who covers that cost. Director Campbell, as you mentioned in your presentation earlier, it's often unexpected. It's not something you think about when you purchase a property in the city, that you may one day have to completely replace a sidewalk. And so It has been really well received. We've had a lot of interest in it from the moment we first introduced it in 2022. Thank you.
President Bakay, if I could make a quick plug, this wasn't my intention, but I realized in talking about the other opportunities, the CRIZ program is relatively new. There's also a new program being offered through the Economic Development Company. So there's small business loan opportunities through both the CRIZ and the EDC at this time. I know that's not the topic, but I figured it would be worth noting for public information.
It's tangential. Thank you very much.
Council
Counselor Walsh.
President?
Yep.
Director Dels, if I may, since we are on the topic of the Enterprise Loan Fund, you said this is one of the programs that has been or has utilized that fund. Can you tell me any other projects or initiatives in like the past 3 years that have taken advantage of this fund?
Yes, during the declaration of the pandemic emergency, we did use a portion of this loan fund for emergency loans to small businesses, so closer to the original purpose of the Enterprise Loan Fund. That was actually a joint effort with Assets and with the Community First Fund to put together a larger loan and grant program that was available for small businesses. I think that was the main purpose in recent years, but as I said, it's been otherwise dormant, and the city staff have been looking for strategic ways to use it where the community really needs it.
I believe we also use these funds for the South and Concerned Neighbors purchase of an additional property.
That's correct.
Thank you.
I believe that was $80,000 that was made as a loan to South and Concerned Neighbors for the purchase of a home on South Ann Street.
Thank you. All right. Any other council comments on the resolution? Comments from the public?
Would just like the Director Campbell to review the number we're spending. If in 2022, we spent $1.5 million to repair British properties, but now we're spending $1.7 million to repair properties. That's much more than
Director Campbell, if you'd like to address that?
Thank you. Yes, the vast majority of the properties last year were much smaller properties. They were 14 to 22 feet wide, generally speaking. There were very few corner properties, but there were several larger properties which may have been not only corner properties, but ones that had much larger either sidewalk frontages or a lot more sidewalk damage. This year, there are fewer properties, but for the most part, they're slightly larger properties. So the numbers, the number of loans, the number of violations, the number of properties involved is going to be approximately 200, and that's based on the properties that are affected by street paving that is anticipated for those particular areas, not based on anything else, with the proviso that we will add in any properties that may be the result of the 311 or the Click Fix program, where people see violations and report those, and those need to be part of this program as well.
Thank you for that explanation. Any other comments from the public?
Hello again. I'm just curious. Any reason why that fund was dormant?
Is there anything else
reason?
before?
Yeah.
It sounds like what they were explaining previously is that the funds were expended and being repaid, and that there be other avenues for businesses became available that were easier for the businesses to get the funds, so that
Okay.
just became dormant.
Just curious.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hearing no other comments, Mr. Harris.
Mr. Med.
Aye.
Mr. Royo.
Aye.
Ms. Gregg.
Aye.
Ms. Diaz. I'm sorry. Ms. Walsh.
Aye.
And President Bakay.
Aye. Right. That concludes our legislative agenda this evening. We now move to our second public comment period. This is open for comments by about any issues that were not previously on the agenda. Again, as a reminder, duration of comments is limited to no longer than 3 minutes, and please begin with your name and block of residence for the record. Mr. Acosta-Velez.
Good evening, council. I want to make things clear. I am running for council, but I've had this problem before I decided to run for council. I'm back with the problem that nothing has been done, and you got paperwork with the problems I had in my home with the lead program. And I am not going anywhere. It's $25,000 that the man did not do a good job in my house. And I wanted to know what's happening. Are we studying it? Are we going to do anything with it? So I know what else do I need to do.
Do you have anything further at this time, Mr. Acosta-Velez?
Yeah.
I can certainly respond if you'd like, but I don't want to take up your time in doing so.
Yeah, just respond. What's going to happen?
So I'm happy to do so publicly. You provided me 2 documents that were questions that I had regarding your understanding of who was to communicate with the contractor that did the work on your property and who was to remove your personal property. The documents that you provided me actually clarified the city's documents that I had seen previously that said that it was your responsibility to move your items and it was your responsibility to contact the contractor and not the city while you were under warranty. So it sounds like we have a fundamental misunderstanding that occurred of what you had signed and who was responsible for doing what. Beyond that, Mr. Acosta-Velez, I don't know if I have anything further to add at this time.
Okay, there was a contract signed by me that said mediation was supposed to be done by the city. And in that contract, it says the city was supposed to mediate. No mediation has been done. Unless you have paperwork that mediation was done.
I don't know that I have anything further on this, Mr. Acosta-Velez. It seems that there's a misunderstanding of who was to do what in this situation, but you've provided me with paperwork that confirms what I had already seen.
So you're saying that nothing's going to be done, correct?
I don't have anything personally further. If there's anyone else that you've been working with that you'd like to follow up with, I would encourage you to do
No,
so.
I'm following up with you as president of council, okay? Because you said to bring the documents and we still haven't resolved anything. So I needed to know, where do I go after this? Because I've been here coming a whole year and I speak English very well and mediation has not been done. And the city signed that a city would mediate to resolve this, and they have not. And there's not any document here or in Puerto Rico that tells that you did any mediation. And I'm talking about the staff. So I'll be back. So I need an answer to that. Okay? I really need an answer because I never got any paperwork to that. Okay, the person's not working with us anymore. And that same person gave another person a hard time. And she's afraid that if she talks up, you know, but I'm not afraid of any of you. I can make it very clear. So I want to know what's going to happen, and please have an answer for me, because you're the president of council, and you can open doors that I can't open. Okay? So I would like to know, where was the mediation done? When was the mediation done?
Mr. Acosta-Velez, you have reached 3 minutes. Is there anything further that you have?
No, I'm asking you the question. And the 3 minutes can go by, but you need to find an answer for this. Okay? And I'm sure you will.
Thank you. Are there any further public comments this evening?
I have a real quick question. So the Fix-It program that you guys just initiated, is that contractors or city employees?
I can address that unless you have anything further. The Fix-It program is directly tapped into the appropriate department for each report. So Public Works, streets, trash and recycling, whomever that would be directed to, and that's all city staff.
So it's all city staff? Okay, that's what I wanted to know.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments this evening? All right, hearing none, we move then to the report of the mayor. Mayor Sirachi.
Thank you. As you know, the city is engaged in the process of developing a long-term control plan to meet the requirements of the consent decree. This is essentially a legal enforceable schedule that outlines what investments the city of Lancaster is required to make to achieve the goal of making progress toward eliminating all of our combined sewer overflows. This schedule and associated investments are predicated on the ability of a community like Lancaster to be able to reasonably afford them during the time period dictated by the consent decree. To determine what communities can afford, the EPA utilizes a tool called the Financial Capability Assessment. The EPA has recently released new guidelines regarding the Financial Capability Assessment, which may have significant impact to the city and its residents. While the new guidance does offer continued support for integrated planning and green infrastructure, which is very positive, this new guidance increases the potential for Lancaster to be required to implement a long-term control plan in a time frame and cost that city residents will not be able to reasonably afford. Last weekend, I had the opportunity to share our concerns about affordability at the U.S. Conference of Mayors Winter Leadership Meeting in Miami, Florida, with an audience of the Deputy Secretary for Intergovernmental Affairs and other White House officials. I'm also a member of the Water Council, which is comprised of other mayors across the country working to ensure water quality and affordability, and collectively we're working to elevate the concerns about this new guidance. And I just wanted to brief council on this matter because this has been a long-running process of moving through a series of steps to reach an agreement with the EPA around our long-term control plan, and we are still very much engaged in that negotiation. The second thing that I wanted to share with council is, as you know, we've had 2 back-to-back critical incidents in the city beginning on Sunday morning with the ammonia leak inside Kunzler and Company facility on Manor Street. Thanks to the Lancaster County Hazmat team for their technical expertise in monitoring air quality and guiding decisions about shelter-in-place orders. Fortunately, the impact to residents was limited and there were no injuries. And then there was last night's fire on Plum Street. It was remarkable in terms of the number of individual properties that were significantly affected by fire. This was due to the fact that 8 of the 10 properties were condemned. Firefighters do not make entry into condemned buildings. Otherwise, rest assured that our team would have been able to limit the damage to many fewer properties. The city released a detailed statement earlier today regarding the history and ownership status of these properties, which is available online and was sent to each of you councilors. The investigation into the cause of the fire is ongoing. I'd like to thank all of the responding fire companies who were on scene to assist last night: Manheim Township, Lancaster Township, Lafayette, Willow Street, Millersville, Blue Rock, Rohrerstown, Mountville, Gordonville, New Danville, East Petersburg, and Lancaster EMS. It was an incredible effort. Additionally, I would like to thank the Red Cross and the School District of Lancaster staff who were on scene last night to assist impacted families. Quip's Pub for providing food for firefighters and affected residents. One particular staff member who I regret that I did not get her name, provided blankets from her car and more. I'd also like to thank the Lancaster City Police Bureau and specifically Officers Coakley and Niedermeyer for going door to door with me to assess the needs of residents who were without power for nearly 6 hours, particularly checking on elderly residents in the area or those who needed power for any medical reason. Many neighbors were out also offering water, assisting with moving their cars, and generally looking out for one another. And last, but certainly not least, our own Lancaster City Fire Bureau. They did an outstanding job. That concludes my report for this evening.
Thank you very much, Mayor Sirachi. I appreciate that update. That takes us to the report of President of Council, of which I have none this evening, and then we move to council comments. Are there any council comments this evening? Hearing none and having concluded the rest of our business, I'll hear a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.